Delana said, thank you, Delana. We are starting out with introductions in the chat. So name, pronouns, and where you're joining from. If you need to change your pronouns, you can do that or change anything about your name, you can do that by clicking the 3 dots on your square and then hitting rename. And as always, we are going to just go over our community commitments like we do at the start of every meeting. A reminder for folks to move up and move back. So think about how you usually show up in spaces like this. If you're someone who's usually more vocal, maybe give some space for other folks, and vice versa. If you are someone who's usually quiet in meetings like this, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from everyone. Another reminder that no one knows everything, but together we know a lot, and we're here to learn together. And we like to presume positive intent in our interactions with each other, but also want to acknowledge the impact that our words and our actions are having in this space. For those who don't know me, my name is Kristen Winuk. I'm the Public Affairs Coordinator at Great Education Colorado, and my colleague Delana is here tonight too, helping out. Thank you, Delana. And I just want to share Great Ed's vision and our mission. So our vision is that through public education, every Colorado student, regardless of their zip code, learning needs, language identities, or the color of their skin, graduates prepared to lead their best life. And our mission to accomplish this vision is that we harness the power of grassroots activism and diverse, inclusive networks to guarantee that public schools in every Colorado community are welcoming and that they're adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And this meeting tonight that you're all on is our monthly Advocates Network meeting. So thank you again so much for being here. The Advocates Network is our community where aspiring change makers become action ambassadors for public education. Together, we work for public schools that are welcoming and adequately, equitably, and sustainably funded. And with the Advocates Network, Great Ed is preparing all of you and the rest of the folks in the Advocates Network to become confident education advocates. We are really excited that you're here. And as you'll hear later in this meeting, we have a lot of things going on in the next couple of months. So we're super grateful to have all of you be members of the Advocates Network. And this slide is just a sort of reminder, setting the scene for the work that Great Ed does. So our North Star, of course, is securing sufficient funds and supports for Colorado public schools to meet the needs of every student. And these 4 areas we like to think of as doors or buckets of the work that we do. So you'll hear us talk about the Get It Done campaign, which is related to fully and fairly funding public education. You'll hear a lot tonight about a ballot campaign and a graduated income tax. Of course, we are working on supporting public education and fighting privatization. And then we have another awesome program called the Every Student Welcome Network that is more of a resource sharing and community building space. So I like to show this slide just to remind folks that we have a lot of different things going on at Great Ed, but they're all really important and all great opportunities to support public education in our state. So whichever one or whichever several of these topics speaks to you, we would love to have you partner with us on this work. Okay, and to start off our meeting tonight, we are going to go into some breakout groups in just a moment for about 5 minutes, just to kind of get people meeting each other, knowing who's in the virtual room, and get talking about what we're doing in public education and what we're feeling and what we're seeing. So I will drop those questions in the chat in just a moment, and I'm going to make some breakout groups. Thanks for indulging us in a little breakout group conversation. I'd love to just hear from a couple of folks if you wanted to share what was coming up in your groups. So the questions were, how have you been involved in public education advocacy in the past, and how would you like to be involved this year? With respect to public education right now, what's making you angry and what's making you feel hopeful? So anyone want to come off mute and share a little bit about your discussions?
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. We didn't get very far. We got through the first question, and I think Jerry had some great comments about what makes him angry, and that's as far as we got.
I was just saying we didn't have a whole lot. We didn't get very far either, but not a whole lot about what makes you hopeful. But I was angry that we have to wait another election cycle to write the wrong people on our school boards. I don't know that we didn't try hard enough. I think we tried pretty hard, but some things can be better, but we have to wait another election cycle to fix that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jan and Christy. Sorry, I know there's a lot to talk about, and I only gave you 5 minutes, but we want to give some time for discussion, and we have a lot of material to cover today. One more person want to share out?
We couldn't find the questions. They weren't in my chat, and so but we got to know each other, and we did they flashed up and then they went away. So, but that's okay. We got to know each other, and we talked a little bit about hopeful for the ballot measure, and it was good. It was a good breakout session.
Awesome. Thanks, Mimi. I'm sorry about that. In the year 2026, I'm still learning how to do breakout groups, so I'll have it down for next time. Don't worry, you guys.
No worries. No worries.
All right. Well, thank you all again for having some time in groups. And working off of one screen right now, so hopefully this is big enough for everyone to see. But now that we've had some conversation, I want to give a couple of updates about state and federal education and funding news. And then with the time that we have left this evening, we'll be talking about the adequacy studies and the ballot measure and where we go from here this year and everything to come. So we'll start the updates with talking about the 2026 legislative session, which, as you all know, started last month. There are a lot of words on this slide. I'm a wordy person. But as you are probably all aware, we have a big budget shortfall this year. It's been in the news a lot already. It's going to keep being in the news, and it's going to keep being an issue for the session. So we anticipate that will be top of mind and top conversation item for everyone. Right now, we've heard that our legislators are not planning to cut K-12 education, but we also know, as I said, that we have this big budget issue and that they're going to have to find some money somewhere. And we know in the past that they have done this through the budget stabilization factor from education. So even though we don't have the BS factor anymore, it's just sort of like a wait and see moment right now about what's happening with education funding. So Senator Kolker introduced a School Finance Act, again, that's implementing the current law, no formula or policy changes. This was introduced on the first day of session, which is unusual for the last few years. But at the same time, we do not anticipate that we'll see much happen with it until after the March budgetary forecast and economic forecast is released. We also know that our friend Representative Jennifer Bacon has introduced a bill on prohibiting discriminatory practices in public schools. And this bill is intended for the state of Colorado to sort of cover some of the challenges that we're seeing at the federal level with the Office of Civil Rights and issues of the office not addressing, people's cases in significant time. And so Representative Bacon and some others in Colorado are thinking about how we can beef up the civil rights protections that Colorado is offering. So that is one bill that we know has been introduced. We're also anticipating seeing things about affordable housing for teachers, a referred ballot measure, raising the Tabor cap for education. There's a possibility that someone will introduce a bill with some guidelines for the federal tax credit voucher program. We were recently contacted about a bill that would commit communities to equitable school access and equitable success for students. And we also know that there's conversation about changes to specific ownership tax. But as you can imagine, a lot of the session so far has been taken up by, in addition to these budget concerns, conversations about immigration, responding to things that are happening at the federal level. There's been a lot of talk of bills related to gun violence and artificial intelligence. So we haven't seen a ton about education lately. If anyone else has other information or insights, I invite you to drop them in the chat. And Great Ed is always monitoring and working on this with our partners, but it is possible that we miss things sometimes as well. So if you ever are reading something in the news or have a question, I invite you to send it to me. Our next update is about Protect Colorado's Future, which is a coalition of 16 organizations, of which Great Education is a part of. And this coalition is across areas of expertise. So we have grassroots folks, we have policy folks, we have advocacy folks, and it's all across issue areas. So Great Ed is obviously representing the education community and the education space, but we have folks that work on disability. We have folks that work on issues for young people and children. We have food access, reproductive rights, healthcare, childcare. A lot of different sort of issue areas are represented. And so this coalition, I know those of you who've been on the call every month or who've been working with Great Ed for a while are eagerly waiting for updates. I have some updates, and then coming very soon, we'll have all of the final information and we'll really get going. So I'm excited to share that 8 versions of the graduated income tax ballot measure received title at the state title board last week. The coalition had actually been working on 20 different versions of the ballot measure with just very slight changes to them because, as you can imagine, there are folks in the state of Colorado who do not want to see a graduated income tax come to fruition, and they are really pulling out all the stops to fight this in ways that we have never seen before. So again, the versions of the ballot measure that went through the title board process, the 8 versions that passed last week are very slightly different, just some wording differences and a little bit different with respect to the size of the tax rate that is in different brackets. So, but we do have 8 of them approved, which is great news. The coalition sent a final poll into the field on Friday last week, I believe. And the Protect Colorado's Future Executive Committee will be selecting a final version of the graduated income tax ballot measure this Friday. Then, of course, it has to go, that has to be finalized at the state level. But you can expect to hear an update certainly by the end of this month. And we will be sending out the final ballot measure. You can finally read the language for yourself and know all the particulars. We will be sure to keep everyone updated. Christy, great question. The polling will be back. The executive committee is planning to use the polling to make this final decision. So I think they'll have the information on Thursday, if I'm remembering correctly, and then planning to decide Friday. If for some reason it takes like a few days longer than that, by next week we will have a decision. And I know there are folks on this call that participated in the regional community conversations that we had to gather some input on messaging strategy and organizational participation. Thank you so much to everyone that was able to join those. We got some awesome insight from different areas of the state about suggestions of like what might work better in your local district and community than other messages, which was super helpful. My favorite bullet point on this slide is that our signature gathering, training, and actually getting signatures will start this month. So if this meeting were just a few days later, I'd have all the great news and details for you. But please keep an eye out on your email. We have a sign-up form if you would like to commit right now or to pledge right now to gather signatures with us. We would love to have you, and we will just share more information soon. And for those who are maybe new to the ballot, the petitioning process and the ballot measure campaign process, once we officially get title on the measure and declare that this is the one we're going with, and start gathering signatures, we have 6 months to gather 125,000 valid signatures. So we'll need to get more than that number because they won't always all be validated necessarily. And we need at least 2% of each of our 35 Senate districts. So I'm sure you can imagine that there are some parts of the state where this will be a little bit easier because we have maybe more contacts in certain places than others. But I invite you all to start thinking about where you know people, either personally or if you have like organizational connections in other parts of the state that might be interested in helping us out with this. And I see that there's a comment in the chat. Okay, starting to hear from folks interested in gathering signatures in the Eastern Place and Western Slopes. Awesome. That is great. Delana put the pledge form in the chat, and we'll share that again. Does the polling have wide representation? Lori, that's a great question. I'm not sure of the details of this particular poll, but I know that this is the third time that they've done a poll, and they also did some message testing. And again, I'm not sure the demographics of like this particular one, but I know the ones that the polling results that they've shared in the past have been representative of different demographics around the state in terms of like gender and political affiliation and that sort of thing. Can we share this sign-up link? Yes, absolutely. That would be perfect. Thank you, Ross. Okay, any other questions about the ballot measure at this moment before I move on? All right, well, if you think of something, feel free to drop it in the chat. And I will keep us moving. I also know in these monthly meetings, we have talked a lot about the Federal Tax Credit Voucher Program, which is also known as the Educational Choice for Children Act. This program was included in H.R. 1, the Federal Reconciliation Bill that passed in July. It sort of flew under the radar at first in the end. But in recent months, we've seen a lot more conversation about it. You may have seen 2 weeks ago this article here about Governor Polis opting us into the program, which we knew that he had been interested in, but he was at an event recently with, I believe at a religious school, where he announced that Colorado would officially be opting in. So what this program is, to explain very briefly, is it's an opportunity for individual states for governors to choose to opt their state in or out. And if their state is opted in, any person within the state could receive up to, if they make a donation of up to $1,700, could receive 100% tax credit, not a tax deduction, on that donation. And so the idea of this program is that individual people could donate $1,700 or more to scholarship granting organizations in their state, which would then distribute the money for students and families to use. And based on what we've seen with similar programs in different states, based on what we know from our conversations with Treasury, which our Executive Director, Lisa Weil, recently gave some comments at the Department of the Treasury, and we've been working with national partners on this. It really seems like the kind of program that sounds good, and that, you know, people that are supporting it are trying to say that it could work for public school students and could make a big impact for low-income families. But of course, we know that the real intention is to continue privatizing education. So the regulations for this program are still being written. Despite this, our governor has already opted us in, and we actually have a link that I think Delana can drop in the chat to the comments that Governor Polis submitted to the IRS when he, when it was open for comment. And he expressed his concern about the potential for waste, fraud, and abuse in this program, and yet has still decided before the regulations are written that he wants to opt Colorado in. So we have a petition going with over 1,000 signatures as of last week, which is awesome, asking our current governor and our next governor to opt us out of this program and to keep public funds in public schools. And we also know that while it seems like Colorado is opted in for the time being, as I said, the regulations are not finalized yet, and we do have this very public written document from our governor, and so we have the opportunity to hold him accountable to the concerns that he expressed, and really wait and see what this program is actually going to look like when the Department of Treasury releases the rules. The other part of this slide is that this is going to be a program that state governors will have to opt into every year. So while Governor Polis has the opportunity to opt us in now, and it's sort of uncertain how binding that decision is, we do know that our next governor will have the chance to opt in or out. And so Great Ed actually has this exclusive information from Senator Michael Bennett's campaign, where he said that he hasn't given sort of like a clear answer on whether he would opt in or out. He said that he would only opt in if the program is if the funds are able to be used for public schools. But he did say that at this point, he feels like just saying no, that he would opt out, it has the possibility of leaving funds on the table. So I think I saw Delana just shared the link to that article. If you'd like to read more, his direct quote is in there. On the other hand, we know that Attorney General Phil Weiser has been very clear that he would opt Colorado out of this program if elected. So those are the two maybe front runner candidates that we've heard from. We've had some other candidates that have engaged in dialogue with us, which has been great. So we will just keep watching with the regulations and waiting to find out more. But in the meantime, if you have not signed this petition yet, we would love to have you sign it and share it. And we will keep you posted on next steps here. Any questions about this federal tax credit voucher program? Thank you, Delana, for dropping all those links. All right. With our remaining 20 minutes or so of tonight's meeting, I'd love to take some time to sort of zoom out a little bit and remind folks of where, you know, we do these monthly like updates about education and budget policy. But I'd love to give a refresher on what is guiding our work, what the Get It Done campaign is, and how we are viewing our big opportunities in 2026. So these slides may be very familiar to some of you. You may have seen them recently at a presentation. For others, you may have never seen them, or it might have been a while. So I hope you'll forgive me if this is very familiar, but I know we have some new faces or some returners on the call. So we wanted to take some time and just sort of make sure we're all on the same page about our work for this year and what our North Star is. So I'd love to see in the chat, if our schools in Colorado were fully funded, you can think about statewide or in your particular district, what resources would our students, teachers, and district have? If we had full funding for public schools, what might look different than what we're seeing right now? We would have enough money to retain quality teachers and staff, better support for students with special needs. Absolutely. Those are two of the most common responses that we get to this question. Depending on where you live in the state. Oh, that's exactly what I was going to say, Jan. Lower class sizes. I know in some districts that's not necessarily the biggest issues, but particularly in the Front Range, that's something that we're seeing a lot. And fewer teachers leaving the profession. Absolutely. It's not only, it's the only consideration is not just salary for teachers, but also do they feel like they're being invested in and that they have professional development? Are they having to manage like truly unreasonable class sizes and that sort of thing? Let's see, mental health and counseling support, language classes in elementary school, updated science labs, quality education across the state, eliminate the haves and have-nots. That's a great one, Jerry. I'm also seeing Anne's question. What is the timeline to raise the funding for Colorado so the state is fully funded? For example, by the year 2020 or 2036, ... Well, Anne, that is a great segue into the rest of my slides. So thank you for that. I will hopefully answer your question in a few slides, but if I do not, please feel free to expand upon it or to bring it back up. But for those who might be unfamiliar or who might want a reminder, you are all, of course, experts in what you're seeing in your districts and what is happening in your experience and your family's experience in Colorado schools. And we have a different type of expertise from two adequacy studies that the state of Colorado commissioned in 2023. So two independent research firms were contracted to determine what resources would be necessary to ensure that all of our students can meet the standards that we as a state have set for education. So they did these reports and issued the results this time last year. And their results were highlighting all of the things that you all just said. So one bucket of recommendations was increased individual attention. For K through 3 class size, they recommended 15 students. 4 through 12, the recommendation was 25. They recommend tutors in every school and, of course, more counselors and health professionals, which you all put in the chat. Some of the other recommendations were ways to offer more support or more programs for students. So things like extended day and summer school for students with additional needs. We also saw recommendations related to more funding so that there can be better technology, more resources and supports for curriculum, after school programming, and things like electives. Because we know that aside from like reading, writing, arithmetic, right, like school is a place to be figuring out other things that you really like or don't like. And a lot of students do that through electives. So this was another theme, sort of thinking beyond just the basics of school and thinking about all the other opportunities that we can offer students. And of course, one of the biggest recommendations, again, as you all identified, is support for teachers. So the adequacy studies really showed that we need to both pay more teachers and pay our teachers more. They recommend having one instructional coach for every 200 students. When I've given this presentation at in like our big schools in the Front Range, I haven't heard one school that has this ratio. So again, it differs across the state, but these are sort of the broad themes of the adequacy studies, and I think every district is struggling with these topics to some degree. So the total amount that the adequacy studies showed that we are underfunding education is somewhere between $3.5 and $4.1 billion per year. So another way to say that is that the adequacy studies say, as a state, we need to invest somewhere in this range, more money per year into K-12. And just for a comparison, we're spending about $10 billion right now on public education. So this is about a 1/3 increase in our current budget. And I know that is a big number. It doesn't just seem like a big number. It's actually a huge number. You might be feeling, I know some of you mentioned from the breakout group conversation, there's a lot to be angry about right now. Sometimes it feels like it's hard to feel hopeful about public education. But with Great Ed, we are here with you to appreciate those challenges and also to offer a solution. So we've seen time and time again across the state, there's sort of this like learned helplessness almost about public education funding. So you'll hear people say things like, well, that's just the way it is. There's no money. We just sort of have to make do with what we have. And it's true that there are amazing things happening across the state in public education every single day. But we also know that our students and our teachers and our communities deserve and are due a lot more. So the Get It Done is Great Education Colorado's effort to empower our advocates for equitable education and for all of us to be banding together and combating these myths and knowing that we can do something about it. And one of my favorite stories is that Great Education Colorado actually started in someone's living room about 23 years ago with a group of elementary school moms. And they all got together and were just sort of talking about the school funding landscape and why their kids' classrooms and schools were underfunded and sort of how this happened and where it started. So I share that story because it might seem like the group of us that are on this call today, we're all in different places across the state. It might feel like we can't do much, but our organization is here today because those folks saw a need and an opportunity. And so much funding and education advocacy has grown out of that. And so we are really excited and grateful to have all of you here and all of the others who are part of this work and are not necessarily here tonight. We know that together we can get this done for our students. So again, the Get It Done campaign is a collaboration between organizations and individuals urging our state legislators to take bold and concrete action to implement the recommendations of the school finance adequacy studies. We have a lot of awesome partners in this work. Some of them include PTA, Colorado PTA. We have the Colorado Rural Schools Alliance, Colorado Association of School Boards, and Association of School Executives, and a bunch of other organizations that I don't have a slide for. But this really is a collaborative effort. And at this point, lots of organizations and individuals across the state are with us. And I'm excited to share that we have one great victory under our belt already. So I know lots of you, I think, that are here tonight were part of making this happen. But in April, our state Senate passed this resolution committing to or reaffirming the critical importance of public education and its full and fair funding. And then pledging to develop a multi-year implementation plan, including revenue triggers to phase in the recommendations. So while we know that resolutions like this are a little bit more symbolic than, hard and fast policy documents, we also have the receipts of who signed on to this and who didn't. And we know that this is something that, as a whole, our state Senate is committed to. And we are working this year to have the same resolution passed in the House. So we expect to have some updates about that very soon as well, which is exciting. So just to share some information about sort of the two buckets of work that we're focusing on in 2026. There's this bucket that we've been talking about with the adequacy studies as our North Star. So we know that we are in a very tough budget situation this year, and that we'll have to fight to protect the current level of funding that we have for education. And at the same time, we know that we need to keep these adequacy studies as the thing that we are all aiming for. We have this detailed research that the state of Colorado invested in, and it has, some pretty concrete recommendations for things to do. So while we're protecting what we have now, we also need part of the conversation to be, where are we going and what do we want for education in the future? And related to this, I know some of you on the call have had the opportunity to hear from Representative Jennifer Bacon, who's the Assistant Majority Leader in the House. She is amazing. She is a former teacher, a former school board member, and she's really committed to education and equitable access to education for all of our students across the state. And she's working on something called the Blueprint for Student Success with other state legislators. And so they are sort of using the adequacy studies to think about, let's pretend for a moment that we had the funding that we need for education. What would the first steps that we would take? And what sort of the path of policy changes that we would make to help all of our students get to adequacy and beyond? So this is sort of one bucket of the work is, really using the adequacy studies and the information that we have and talking with our legislators about the importance of education and keeping this front and center with everything else that's going on. The second bucket of work here is what we were talking about a little bit earlier this evening with Protect Colorado's Future, the coalition that's working to put the graduated income tax on the ballot. So we know that this measure that we're proposing would bring in somewhere between $2.3 billion more per year for education, healthcare, and childcare. So, this is the other side of the coin of how do we actually get the funding? And we know that we're not going to be able to solve this entire complicated problem in 2026, but these two efforts together are complementary, and together will be a huge step forward for public education. So we have a really exciting opportunity here in the year 2026, and Great Ed is really happy to have all of you here supporting us. We will continue to share information. We have these monthly meetings. We have lots of opportunities for people to get involved at whatever level you are comfortable with and ready for. But this is sort of where we're going for this year. And then, of course, we know that, again, it's not all going to be solved this year. We'll still need school board members focused on equity. I think, Jan, you sort of raised this in the topic of frustrations earlier on. We need more policies that make all of our students feel welcome, regardless of their background or their needs. And of course, we need more resources to be able to fully address all of our student and community needs. It's not going to end here with this ballot measure. So these are the things that we're keeping in mind to help us get to this sparkly public school system where all Colorado kids can thrive. Any questions or thoughts about this path to success slide in the adequacy studies? I'm seeing there's another comment in the chat from earlier. If our schools were fully funded, we'd have the opportunity to offer more options for students and open up the variety of schools within public schools. We are always playing catch up. Absolutely.
I just want to say that, like, a lot of us have been pretty quiet, but I appreciate coming together with people across the state, and we're all hearing a good, solid message. So we're not making things up on our own. So I appreciate Great Ed giving us opportunity to, hear from you and comments from others.
Thanks so much, Jan. And I do know for folks who've been with us, particularly in the last couple of months, there are a lot of different campaign names and coalitions. And one thing that I hope that this sort of review and presentation has been helpful in what we're focusing on for this year. And I hope that everyone really understands and takes to heart that whatever particular issue that captures your passion and your interest, whatever you're working on, it's all moving the needle forward. So we as Great Ed have a lot of opportunities for folks to plug in. We're in a lot of different places, wearing a lot of different hats. So I know it can feel hard to sort of keep different things straight, but again, the two things that we're really focusing on right now is this ballot work and continuing to push the adequacy studies. And if anyone ever has questions or wants to clarify or wants support finding the best fit, I am always happy to meet or to email or to chat with you. All right, so with our last 5 minutes, as always, we end these meetings with some action steps that you can all take. I have alluded to, I think, all of them already earlier in this presentation, but we'll put them together in one space for you to take advantage of. We've got some QR codes. Delana will drop the links in the chat, and we'll also be sending a follow-up email. So if it's kind of hard to keep up in these last couple minutes, this is definitely not the last time that you'll be seeing all this information. So our first action step, I know a bunch of you here have already signed up for this. Thank you so much. I think we might have another volunteer in Ross, I heard. He talked about this on the Eastern Plains, which is great. But Delana just added the link to sign up to gather signatures with Great Ed. As I said earlier this evening, we're going to start training people and giving people petitions by the end of this month. So I know folks have been hearing about this for a long time. I'm here to tell you that it's happening and we are doing it, and you are all going to be instrumental. So if you are at all interested, I invite you to sign up on this form. And we're going to be looking for people that want to host trainings in their communities or organizations. So if that is of interest to you, please send me an email. Protect Colorado's Future will handle all the training and the materials and the logistics. We would just love to have you invite us to come to your community and to help get some folks there to actually attend the training. So I hope to hear from you about that. Our next action item is to attend Public School Strong Colorado organizing meetings. So again, some of you here were at our Public School Strong Colorado kickoff last week. Thank you so much for everyone that was able to attend that. Public School Strong Colorado is a collaboration between Great Education, the Colorado Education Association, Colorado PTA, and the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. So it's our 4 organizations coming together to educate people about issues that are happening in our state, but it's mostly focused on actually organizing in local teams of advocates. So I just put this little sort of explainer at the bottom. These Advocates Network meetings that you're at right now is particular to Great Education Colorado. As you see, we focus a little bit more on sharing information, and we're often focused on funding. We do always have action steps at the end of our meetings, but the Public School Strong Colorado meetings are across several organizations, and it's a little bit more focused on actually organizing. And I kind of, like I said before, I just want to emphasize that in both places, Great Education Colorado is sharing our priorities and our action items, and both meetings are really valuable ways to learn about and advocate for public education. So it's sort of you pick what fits best for you. If you want to keep coming to these Advocates Network meetings, if you want to go to Public School Strong Colorado, we are in both places. And of course, we're always happy to have people at both. And I am at all of these things. So every single one of them is an opportunity to hang out with me. And our last action item for today is to sign up for Great Education Colorado's Advocacy Day. It is Thursday, April 9th. We have officially created our sign-up form, which Delana just dropped in the chat, and the QR code is on the slide. I know we've been telling you to save the date, but now we actually have a form where you can say that you'll be there. And please invite your friends, whether it's people that you know are involved in this space but maybe have taken a step back, or people that are not yet participating with Great Education or with Public School Strong Colorado. We would love to have you. We will have opportunities for, the day will be open to people that are totally new to this, and we'll still have content and opportunities for those of you who've been doing this work and volunteering for a long time. So I'm really excited for Advocacy Day, and we hope to see all of you there. And right at 5:30, 5:31, that is all for tonight. Thank you all so much for joining again. I know we've shared a lot of information. I feel like I've been talking really fast. But if you have any questions or want to learn about, we just chat about more ways to get involved. And again, I'm happy to help you find a best fit for what you're looking for and what your capacity is. I'd always love to hear from you, and we have the link for our next Advocates Network meeting, which is Tuesday, March 10th. All right. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.